This is gonna be a good one, because his signature Star Trek is Picard, right?
No, it's like one of my signature ones. I love Picard. I thought Picard, loquacious, locutus, locutus, But look, just talking about his series, the Next Generation is critical because that was the show that brought the whole Enterprise on TV there. We've had, because of that, DS9, we had Voyager, we had Enterprise, and of course, his favorite, Discovery. No matter how...
Discovery has no connection.
It is, because I'm just saying, the success of the TV shows, because of the success of Next Generation showing that it's a proven concept, it would have worked.
No.
For the love of God, you just disagree.
Yes.
He's disagreeing with me just to disagree.
Yes, the Next Generation was successful.
Critically successful.
No. Let's go to what really happened.
All right, let's hear this.
First,
let's hear. Oh, great one.
The great bird in the galaxy.
He comes down off the mountain with the lawgiver. Tell us, please. Oh, great one.
I was surprised because at one point I was an intern. I pulled reviews, but since I was in front of a whole library of reviews, I said, let me go read my favorite movies.
Oh.
And then I said, let me read the Star Trek ones. Mm-hmm. So the first one, the reviews aren't that strong for the motion picture. But Khan was one I had to read. And when I read that, there's a line in there where DeForest Kelley says that, I know it must be tough for Gene Roddenberry since they took away his baby, meaning he was only a creative consultant.
Right.
He didn't have a major say in the movies, right? And the movies went and played up the fact of being on a ship or being in a submarine. They
Right.
sort of played that up even more than the TV show. The TV show definitely had aspects of being on a ship, and they played that out. So when the Voyage Home hit, and they were like, oh, this thing is the biggest thing ever. What should we do? They did a TV show, right?
I'm not talking about the Voyage Home. Continue going on.
The Voyage Home happens. It's one of the most successful Star Trek films.
I hated that movie. Damn whales. Continue. I'm gonna hear the madness.
So when that happens, they say let's go to television and let's give them a movie, right?
Yeah.
What do we got here?
Continue. Don't interrupt. Just continue. I just want.
So when you get to that point, the point where they give it back to Gene Roddenberry to do a television show, he comes up with a whole new cast, and he does redos of the original series. The first season is but they're a little more diplomatic. They're more like ambassadors. They're not really like the way, Kirk is an ambassador at times, but it's basically they know there's sort of a Cold War sort of setup, even though the Next Generation calls what they were doing cowboy diplomacy. But basically they're diplomats. It's almost like the Love Boat, So they're like kind of...
I think that's a loose.
No, they don't do
that's a loose.
Do they talk? Do they have even like a Julie? Like they have what's the name?
Uhura?
No, not Uhura. I'm talking about who's the guy the kid that everyone hates? Now why can't I remember? Wesley Crusher. Like he's like the Julie of the series. They have this kid.
Oh my gosh.
Kid. But I mean, the thing is that from the first season, I'm not sure if you would know more than me. Somehow after the first season, they started upping the level of stories that they were doing. They had a different slant because they wouldn't counteract the Prime Directive. There's episodes where they're like, hey, this thing is blowing up, but we're not, it's a Prime Directive. Mm-hmm. We got to respect it. Whereas, depending on lives, Captain Kirk would
try to get around it.
He would be diplomatic. He would be diplomatic with the Prime Directive. So ultimately, some of the things where the show turned kind of bothered me, and I wanted more done with the Betazoid because I liked her, Deanna Troi, but they kind of just had her there as a consultant. Like, I sense, and then you kind of...
See, I had the total opposite. I thought they should have taken her off the ship and pushed her out the airlock. But continue.
No, what I wanted, you're thinking differently. I think because her character wasn't that strong, and then they had, what's the Whoopi Goldberg?
Worf?
No, Whoopi Goldberg's character.
Guinan.
Guinan. I was about to say Gaius.
Also walked to the airlock too.
But he's like, he had two he had one on deck, and one in the cabin, and then one when he go to get some lunch. It's like basically what I wanted Deanna Troi to do, like what you do in a comic book. Something would happen. Basically, her telepathic powers would be like her mother's, so she would be not half and not sense. She would have to deal with knowing what everybody thought, and it'd be giving her something more to deal with rather than, Captain, I sense this, and being sort of the push-pull for, number one.
Well, no, I got that. I understand what you're saying. And one of the problems I had with that particular character was that, that's when I was thinking Star Trek was more of a military organization. But it's not. It's a scientific organization. It's an exploratory organization. And like you said, those guys out there being diplomatic, they're out there to connect with new worlds and advance new worlds.
Like the Love Boat. Like they go to different lands.
Well, that was really more Kirk's. But yeah, the Betazoid grew on me as time went happen. But her initial character is that it makes sense if it's a starfaring, scientific, ambassadorial searching thing, But as a military organization, when they start getting later in the season and they're battling the Klingons and the Romulans and stuff like that, it becomes a little bit more problematic. Like, why are you doing here? I mean, like the whole premise of that whole ship is that it can detach and you have family and friends and all living there. You're like, why would you have family on a ship when it's in the middle of a war? It's like
that's why I call it the Love Boat. So
that's why I've always had problems with that. It's like, does it make sense? If it's exploratory, okay, but they should have probably explained that better. Where they're like, all right, you know what, we're in a hot conflict or we're going to a hot conflict zone. You got to unload the family, or let's separate and do that. Yeah, I get it. I get it. But my problem here, let's get back to Picard. The question is, why are we rehashing Picard?
We're not rehashing. We're getting another story post. He's an admiral now. And we're going to see where he's... And the thing is, I'm
admiral of what?
Of Starfleet.
In the books and in previous shows, he's been noticed as he's been called an ambassador. An ambassador. So as an ambassador, you have different goals. And one thing that we like, I love the whole separation of the role between Picard and his number one, was that you had someone who was doing the Kirk stuff, which they didn't do enough of, with him. And they had him who was the more cerebral, the more sit back, the more grand strategy guy. So as the Admiral, it makes perfect sense to have him this way. But, they're not showing us anything. It's, what is this series about? Why do we want to see it? What's the tease? You don't see a tease of him. All you see is his face, and that's it.
Yeah.
And vineyards. So what is he? Are you going to talk about he's making, as an admiral, he's going to be a retired admiral? I assume that's what he is. He's just going to be in his vineyard talking about stories. Is it going to be like what's that, Dark Matter? Is it going to be an anthology where he talks about different things that happen, different stories? That'd be an interesting concept.
Black Mirror?
Black Mirror. That'd be an interesting concept.
I think.
But I don't think that's what it is.
I think I'm going to say this, even though I had my critique of the Next Generation, I think Picard sort of, as Spock and Kirk are sort of and even McCoy are sort of the benchmarks of the original series and what led to the movies.
Don't forget Scotty. Love Scotty.
Well, I mean, yeah, like that cast.
Captain,
but I'm saying,
the
direction between Kirk and Spock, that's sort of the two ways of reacting to things. And then you throw in a little bit of McCoy as a guy who kind of pushes and prods those guys.
Right.
But with the Next Generation and subsequent series, Picard is actually is basically he's the basis on all the other captains. The act that they all say engage, they all they could run the ship without a crew, that sort of thing. Like having a captain that, like Kirk, even though, like the thing is that people say that, William Shatner was taking up too many lines and this, that, and the other. But ultimately, he does listen to what other people say. And Picard a lot of times someone says, hey, Geordi, what if you did this, that, and the other? And they say, yes, that's brilliant, Captain. I think that could do this, that, and and they add on what he says. So basically, Picard has been the focal point of every Star Trek under, was it Rick Berman? Yeah, and
Rick Berman, Brandon Braga.
Those guys, he's been the guy, and you can see Picard not as much in Cisco, but a lot when you see in the Janeway and you see in the Enterprise show. Yeah. So ultimately, since he is the guy,
because those ships were moving while Cisco was stationary.
No, I'm saying Cisco kind of started like Picard, and then they started to bring out the Hawk in him. Because they changed his look. They showed that he was kind of tougher than he seemed. And
he was in the middle of a war, galactic war.
No, but I'm saying when he didn't have the mustache, he was just like, okay, we're gonna do the black guy Picard. And then when they cut his hair and they gave him the goatee back, he was like, all right, this guy has a little more edge, and he's like, he can be the Picard, but he can, he has. And there was one episode I think when they had everyone's being sort of like the intoxicated and falling for people. And the guy liked the alien girl with the tattoos, and he comes to Cisco and punches Cisco in the face, and Cisco's like, come on. He's like, you can't do anything. Like, stop it. So, but there's a definitely. I mean, he's the guy for the next generation stuff. So, right, so why wouldn't you want a series with Picard? That's what I'm saying. Yeah, they just didn't give us a lot.
Look, all I'm just saying is that
it didn't give us a lot. You're right.
I feel that a lot of shows like to just they have a brand and we're gonna extend it as far as we can. The problem we have here, the whole mess with the Star Trek movies. You have movies on different timeline, Kelvin timeline, Discovery. You don't know what is real, what isn't real. Of course, Discovery tried to collapse that this season, so I'm not going to knock that at the moment. The point I'm trying to get to is that we have issues with a lot of these things, and I just find that this is run more on corporate than it's really run more on fans. We do want to see more of the story, and I tend to be a reader, so I tend to read in terms of the books and stuff, and sometimes some of those stories are really good. And you're like, yo, why don't you incorporate some of the stuff in here? But the movies and TV shows are like, we're not going to use that stuff. And I think that that's such a crime. What's the point of getting the readers who truly, the fans who truly like to continue and read and buy continual parts of this space, this world, this universe. And then you say, well, this is all ridiculous. Disney did that with Star Wars. And then you just start doing your own thing. And then when you look at, wait a second, this is how we developed the character for many years. The book sales, of course, it's not going to equate what a movie does. It's not going to equate what a TV show does. But, this is where the loyalty of the fans go on for years on years, just trying to develop these particular characters that you like, and then you just discard that. And that's my biggest problem with this, is that if you really want to give the fans what you want, and I got to say the same thing goes with Game of Thrones, and I'm just going to throw this little dig in there, where you expect one thing with the character, and you buy IP based on that, and then all of a sudden at the very end you find it just totally different. Probably if the same thing with Star Trek, if they were better able to lead the fandom to a particular way, that would be one thing. But when you don't give any ideas and then you spring stuff on people, you're like, yo, what the hell? Why did I invest my time, my effort to get into this?
You're a fan of Picard, right?
I'm a fan of Picard, and getting all the way back, the point of this is, I don't know what the point of this is. You know what I'm trying to say? Why is Picard here?
He makes a good wine.
What about
he makes a good cab.
No, but I'm saying
he makes a good cab, right? We can say that.
I'm saying right. I'm saying why not number one? I've been dying to see a number one show.
Because he's directing. He doesn't want to be. He doesn't want to be number one.
But then what about?
He doesn't want to be Captain Kirk. Right. He never wanted to be him.
Okay. Geordie's engineer show. You're not going to say you're going to see him there. But even Deanna Troi, who is the counselor. What about a show based on her? What about a show based on? You
are totally right.
This is what I'm trying to say.
They tested the waters with Discovery and new characters when. They could have just gave us a number one on Discovery. Like they could have gave us a number one show in the past with her, and play that out and say, oh, it's number one before she got to the Enterprise.
Me and a friend of mine worked on a book with Sulu. When we were trying to develop something like that. And I think those are characters. Why always Kirk? Why not one of the other characters? Because you know what happens?
No, it could have done a totally different Excelsior. That's a good name.
So I'm saying when you have these other characters, develop them.
Yeah.
And this is the same thing you have in different universes, the Marvel universe and the Harry Potter universe, whatever. You have other minor characters that are there, but you figure, oh, well, we don't need them. Let's get a new one.
Why?
bring in a new character. Why not get the character and then explore that particular character and say, hey, there's more to this character than meets the eye. This character is ambitious, you know what I'm trying to say? Everybody who starts off on a naval ship, officers that is, their end goal is to become a captain, right? So what happens, you go through different roles. You go through tactical, communications, until you hit that particular level, and that's it. And then you become a captain. And everybody there who's sitting, when you see them sitting in front of that thing, even the guy in the red shirt who we know is going to die, he says, hey, I'm going to probably become, head of security.
Scotty had a red shirt and he didn't die.